to our Be the Glue series, where we share short, casual, but really impactful conversations with individuals who have been the glue. They bring people together, ideas together, efforts together, and they create something meaningful. So today I am joined by my colleague and friend, Carrie Chizuk. And
Mhm.
welcome, Carrie. So nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be part of this. This is great.
I'm so excited. So Carrie is the Director of Learning and Development at DePaul.
Mm.
And
Yep.
also she's the president of the Rochester chapter for ATD, which is the Association for Talent Development.
Yep.
And she's a fellow disruptor too.
Yes. Yep.
So Carrie, as
Hmm.
you think about like all of your work and years and years of experience in L&D and being that person who has like a lot of passion for developing leaders
Hmm.
and kind of forming those impactful teams and facilitating training and all the cool work that you do around culture and development, what
Yeah.
does the glue mean to you?
Oh, so this concept really resonates with me. And I think one of the reasons is because when I think about my values, one of my core values is connection, right? We are complex humans and we work with complex humans, and connection can be so powerful when we are connecting with each other, even when we're connecting ideas. It gets very exciting when, even my mind, like, is, I enjoy puzzling. My mind loves to connect things, love to connect people. And I think part of it comes from, so I grew up as a middle child, middle of five, kind of a large family. And so I was kind of always in the middle of things and people, a lot of people around. Um, so, I sometimes I was with like adults and sometimes with younger and, so many people. And I think that helped to kind of develop this adult that I am now. And like I said, connection is a value. And the way that I think is, as an adult, as a professional, it's so much about like team building and about building relationships, right? That's a huge thing for me. Being a learning and development professional, my passion is around developing people to be successful, to reach their goals, whatever that means to them. I am certainly never going to be the end all be all answer to anyone when it comes to that. We can't do any of this alone. And so those relationships, those connections are so key to doing what we want to do and to support the people that we're here to support. And so I think that's where like this idea of like being the glue, I think that's what's really resonating with me personally.
And I see you. I see you be the glue in your community, and I love what you're doing with ATD.
Mm.
And so you've been in leadership
Yeah.
development and learning and development for close to 2 decades, I think, right? And
Yeah. Yep.
both nonprofit and for profit, but really you took that passion now and being the president of ATD, you're creating some cool stuff there.
You know what? I'm trying, but I certainly can't take the credit for it because, you know, part of the reason I'm so passionate about leadership development is because as whether it's our work or even in these professional spaces that we're in, so much of how we feel about it has to do with our leader, right? Whoever it is that we are answering to or who's setting the culture influence has a huge amount of influence on how people feel. And so if I can support leaders to support their folks, then it has like this exponential effect, right?
Yeah.
Because then if people have leaders who have the tools to be good leaders, then they're happier people at work, which usually means they're happier people at home, which means that they're doing a better job developing the people that they lead, right? And so it's just this snowball
Yeah.
exponential effect, which is really cool. So when I think about that, and I think about what influence can I have, I I felt like it was time to step up into the leadership of ATD. So I, longtime member, very active member, being in organizations where sometimes I was like the only learning person or even like leadership development person in that organization. I went to ATD because these are my people. Right? This I found my people. This is how I learned so much and expanded my network and got to be the person I am today. So, after being a member for over a decade, I finally took that step into the leadership, right? And boy, I skipped over some of the other stuff and went straight to accepting the president role, which I have, great leaders along the way the whole time, right? Um, and I had a year of being that president elect, and so now I'm president of this board of this chapter and leading a team, and we are all volunteers on the board, right? And so that leadership development is building my skills in a different way than I am a leader at work, but in a good way. And again, it's all about the connection. So there are these awesome folks who are on the board with me, and we are passionate about things like connection and giving people the opportunity to grow and learn themselves. So much about ATD is about the professional development,
Yeah.
but it's also about the networking. Every event that we have includes some type of connection time. I know some people don't love the networking time, but it's so valuable, as you are again really looking for your people. It's it's a big deal, and I remember specifically one of our events last December. So Rock ATD every December we do it's technically our annual meeting, but we make it a fun member event. We, bring in the catering and the food and we have activities and raffles and we do like the annual meeting like a brief update for our members. But I just remember loving that we had some folks who have been part of ATD for years and decades. And then we had people who were brand new, some that were like just exploring and being able to be like, hey, you're a really cool person. I know that you bring this to the table. And you know what? You should meet this really cool person. And I think you might have something in common. Um, and it was just really neat to see the room throughout the evening where people were making those
Yeah.
connections, and it is so exciting, right, to see that,
It
and
is. I
so
love it. I know.
yeah, and so you know what it's like, right? So being in it, and there's a lot of work to do, there's a lot of logistics to handle, but being able to have a team that's excited and to have those moments where you're like, "That really worked.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
awesome."
Yeah.
It makes
Especially
it
if
all
you're doing like fun activities and you've never tried it before and you see how I think you guys did like a little bingo. If I remember, it was
yeah,
like a fun
yeah.
activity coming in a meeting and probably for the, more introverted personalities was a little
Mhm.
bit, um it
Yeah.
wasn't there were a lot of people, but it didn't feel like once you started
Mhm.
talking to a few, it
Yeah.
became like a big family and I love the networking myself, and we're talking before about those aha moments, right? Like we live for the aha moment. We live for the moments of like seeing a sparkle in somebody's like, "Oh, I got that." Like the
Yeah.
connections people make or the
Mhm.
introductions. Like I live for those moments. I love that.
E exactly. You just like see it happen and you see these light bulbs and you see these connections being made and you see these people who maybe you introduced or at least you had an influence in them coming together and now they're doing a project together or now they're we're all planning the next cool events that
Yeah.
we want to do and we've tried a lot of new things this year too. We had this amazing panel event in June that you were part of. We'd love to having you there, and it, it just the energy it almost crackles, right?
That
Like you
was
can
good. Yeah.
feel the inspiration. And it was great because we have, that just leads momentum to the next cool thing we're doing, brings in new people. We love to bring in new members. Our membership is very reasonable from a cost perspective. And we're always looking at how do we, add value, right, for our members because that's what makes it great when people show up. Um, so even, just having people show up, sometimes it's a handful of people and you have these awesome, intimate, really exciting conversations. And then sometimes it's that bigger group. Um, it, it's just fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It can
So,
be.
but you made me think. So, what are some like what's the biggest challenge you're seeing now in learning and development? And as you're meeting and you're connecting with others, are you seeing patterns and what are you experiencing? What are you seeing?
You know, there's so much. We know that there's just so much change in the world right now. There's, uh, certainly the volatility. Um, there's just like so many other things, or people and organizations are trying to do more with less, um, and trying to support the people doing the work. Um, the best we can. And so, I feel like you can't have a conversation these days without talking about AI and
Yeah.
what's that doing. And there's a lot of excitement, but there's also a lot of anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, whether it's your IT folks trying to figure out the security, whether it's people fearing for their jobs, like losing job security is can be a lot of anxiety. um and so that's I think that's one of our bigger challenges right now is that how do we support people, our learners, when they are going through so much, right? Like how is it that we can provide a safe learning environment, um so that people can try new things, um fail in a way that they're going to learn something and go further. There's that psychological safety type of things, like how can we as the L&D folks support in that way, when our folks have real fears just coming to work, and real obstacles. So it's so I think that our industry probably isn't a lot different than many other parts of any organization, of trying to figure out how to support our people when they have so much going on.
Yeah.
um and then also like businesses are changing. There's downsizing, and learning tips typically gets cut pretty quickly. And so we do have some of those concerns too, where how is it that we can support one, making sure our own organizations understand the value of it, but then how do we support our peers who are going through their own job structure changes too? Um, it's just
Yeah,
really tough out there no matter
definitely.
what you're doing.
It is. I was just talking to a couple of friends today and same, like everybody's struggling, everybody's exhausted and the fatigue around it
Yeah.
is
Yep.
real. Um,
Mhm.
and I think, you know, people even trying to learn new skills and trying to upskill themselves and trying to
Yeah.
so that they can support others, right? And that's
Yep.
real and that's happening. And it's just a lot. There's
Mhm.
a lot right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a conversation, actually it was like a little over a week ago, um, in which an employee at a new employee orientation asked like a legitimate question about what do we do if ICE shows up looking for someone, right? And that could be like a coworker, it could be someone we serve, and and right? So like that's a legitimate question we have to figure out how to answer. And if that's like the new employee coming in and that's their level of like anxiety, and then also we need to be realistic no matter what your views are about that. We need to be realistic that there could be two coworkers working side by side. And if that does happen, they may have complete opposite feelings about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could have one employee who wants to like their first instinct is, I'm going to protect this person. I'm going to, you know, that type of a thing. And then you could have the person they're working beside that they have to work well with and respect in a professional way. That other person could be, you know, on the other side of it and like feel completely differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do we, you know,
Become that glue. Yeah.
right, how do we, you know, like get these folks to, you know, to understand that no matter how you feel about that, while also acknowledging that, yeah, you may have very strong feelings, no matter
Yeah.
what those feelings are, you need to follow procedure and policy. And, you know, like there are things
Yeah.
that you need to do as part of your role in, you know, and there's, you know, serious policy regulations around that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
keep the harmony and keep the trust and keep the there's so much to that, but and the
yeah,
changes is not just AI anymore. Yeah, you're right. It is. It's
right.
political, it's social. There's so many dynamics in the
Yeah.
workplace. You have different generations in the
Oh,
workplace.
yeah.
There's so much that
Right.
right, like so
Yeah.
and Ellen, you probably feel that in
Mhm.
learning and
Yep.
development a lot and from an engagement perspective and
Mhm.
there is a lot.
Yeah, there's it's just so much to consider. Um, and you know, and it's hard, and people mean well. They, you know, everyone has great intentions, and they want to do the right thing, but it can be really difficult to do that because again, we're humans, we are complex. We show up with our own stuff, baggage,
Yeah.
experience, and then we are working with other people who are also showing up with their own stuff and baggage and experience. And we need to somehow figure out how to get people to work together, right? So let's have a vision. Let's, you know, get people working toward a common vision. Let's make sure that we are bringing people into our teams who have values that align with the organization. How, you know, there's so many things to consider. How do we, you know, develop leaders to support? Because here's the thing, it's going to be that frontline supervisor who's going to have
Yep.
to help again those in that scenario, which could
Yeah.
be a very real scenario. There's a frontline supervisor who needs to support those folks working together respectfully. um it's, you know, it's it's a complicated world out there.
And we're already struggling, right, with supporting frontline supervisors. I've
Yeah.
always felt like frontline leadership is kind of like in between those two walls, right? Supporting
Yeah.
employees, learning themselves and figuring
Mhm.
out leadership and
Yeah.
what does that mean for them and how can
Yep.
they, you know, grow in their leadership roles. And then they have the executive teams and organizations and kind of are in
Mhm.
the middle of that wall and or between two
Right.
walls, right? Like I've always had that picture of a frontline leader between two walls.
Yeah.
And now you throw AI into it and you throw
Yep.
AI agents. And now I think there was even an article about like, are we going to need supervisors anymore? Are we going to need leaders? And I'm like, yes, we are more than ever. Are you
Yes.
kidding me?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And I
Mm.
think it's gonna come to that experience, and I think, because gaining experience, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to accumulate experience. You kind of go
Yep.
through the what went wrong, what did I learn about it, the growth, the development that
Mhm.
goes into that learning process, right? And then because now knowledge is in your fingertips. I can
Yeah.
come up with
Oh, yeah.
reports and can come up with answers in
Yeah.
minutes, right?
Right.
Seconds. So I think it's the experience that is going to be the
Yeah.
differentiator. And going back to your initial point, it's the connection.
Yeah.
So, so how can we cultivate more
Mhm.
opportunities for connection in the workplace and
Right.
having like letting people utilize their experiences? I think that could be a differentiator if you're able to accomplish that in your organization.
Right. Oh, yeah, because that's there's always gonna be the human touch as part of the equation. Um, and, the idea of AI is to allow us to spend more time with the human pieces of what we do, and leadership is a very human thing. Um, a lot of being a good leader is caring about people. You just I care about this person and I want them to succeed in whatever that means for them. Um, and if you can do that, it's like you're halfway there. But you're right, it does take some experience and it does take, some learning and some mentorship and some different perspectives. I think one of the biggest myths out there in business is that, if you're good at your job, that you would be good at leading a team doing your job. And that's not that's not it, right? Being a leader is a different skill set than being a doer, and your job becomes getting work done through other people. And I think that's where there's just this trap where, "Oh, you were really good at this? Good. Now you're the supervisor.
Here's a
Congratulations."
promotion for you. You're a
Right.
leader now.
Right. And then you're good at it. So you're going to be great at leading. And it's not the same skill set. And so I think that helping, right, these frontline supervisors to understand what their role is, right? It's just a completely different thing to try to get work done through other people and trying to build teams. And there's so much more to it, than just being, you know, good at doing whatever that role is that you're supervising. The other thing too is that you mentioned the generational pieces, right? So that complicates everything. And you have this idea of like these people that they don't want to lead other people,
Mm.
right? So now businesses are trying to figure out how to create career growth opportunities and pathways for people who don't want to lead other people. Because, I mean, it's hard. Leadership
Nobody
is hard.
so true. Nobody, like, tells you, that now you're gonna be wearing multiple hats,
Oh, yeah.
very different
Mhm.
mindset when you start to lead people,
Right.
um, and it's not for everybody.
It's
I
really not.
it's not for everybody.
And we want that to be okay because
Yes,
if you again, if you
yes,
if you're in a leadership role, we want you to be able to like that's something that you want to do. But traditionally, right, your career path is that, ladder where you
yeah,
start out and you do a good job and now you lead a team doing that and then eventually like a larger team and and that kind of a thing. And and how do I grow? How do I stay with an organization and contribute as an individual contributor and still grow? And that's where businesses are getting creative.
yeah,
Um, because you understand that someone has a lot to offer that and leadership might not be
yeah.
what that
And
bring
l
is.
leadership of people, right? Because you can still
Correct.
be an individual contributor and lead
Yeah.
projects, lead resources, lead in
Yep.
so many other ways, like the leading from where you sit. I truly believe in that. There's so
Yep.
many different ways of leading, but then leading people and leading teams of teams, right? And now that becomes very complicated fast.
Yep.
And
Yep.
um you can learn a lot from trial and error, but
Mhm.
you're leading people. So,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
skill set gotta be, yeah,
And
supportive
you're
and
yeah.
caring and yeah,
'Cause now you have these dynamic humans that all come in, like I said, with their own experience and baggage, but also your own personalities, your own right?
mhm,
Like, and it's hard. And then the other thing, I was just having this conversation earlier today, is that when you are at a certain point in leadership, it gets lonely.
mm,
Um, because you have these frustrations, you have, right, these it's work is hard and you have these frustrations, but as a leader, you can't vent your frustrations down to the people that you're leading. And so coming back to this whole connection piece, then you need to connect with someone. So hopefully you have a good supervisor that you can maybe vent up to, but also who are your peer group. And sometimes that can be really hard, especially like I work within an organization where we have 40 different sites. So you have 40 different like buildings that have their own leaders and their own mini culture and that kind of
yes,
a thing. Like how is it that you figure out who your peers are and who you can connect with? And then again, if you go, higher up the ladder,
yep,
it's lonelier because now your peer group is really small. And everybody's busy and everybody is trying to do what they need to do. And so that loneliness can be difficult because it's harder to make the connections because yes, you want to connect with the people you lead, but you still have to be careful about, if you are having frustrations, you can't air those frustrations down because then you're gonna hurt your team dynamic.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And this is where I love that part of my role, that HR for HR, because that's exactly that. Where I was
yeah,
finding a lot of HR professionals, they could not go back to their bosses and, you know, complain or ask
yeah,
for, right, or share the
mhm,
challenges, and
yeah,
get more work, or they would get, a very different,
hmm,
answer. They
yeah,
couldn't kind of vent to their teams. That's also not
yeah,
appropriate. So that I
yeah,
always joke about that, like therapist for the therapists, but really HR for HR.
yeah, and
But
yeah,
it's so true because I mean, you got to find people who understand
hmm,
your challenges, who either
yeah,
have been there, done that, or they can support you from a different perspective, asking the right questions, connecting you with other people, being able to provide
exactly,
resources, or
hmm,
it's so important. And HR in general, it's a lonely profession. I feel
it,
like we support people, but it can be a very lonely profession.
it is because like in traditionally HR has a bad rap, right? Like nobody wants to go see HR because right? There's that stereotype that it and it is tough. Um, so you're right. And you know what? And this is why we have groups like ATD, right? Like those other HR organizations, because again, those are your people.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where you can make those connections and have those conversations that can not only help you to um, maybe vent or, like share your challenges, but also share ideas
Yeah.
and, and explore different things, which again, that's part of the glue, right?
It is. It is. So I mean, for me, part of my mission is like changing this narrative about HR being the
Yeah. Yeah.
bad department, the police, or the right. Like,
Yeah.
I want to change that to seeing HR as a
Mhm.
glue, being that translator layer between different departments, being able to
Yep.
bring different departments together, and that's at my core.
Yes.
So what are some maybe advice or piece of advice that you want to share with the audience, which is mostly HR professionals?
Yeah.
What are some things that you wish you would see different in our both L&D and HR
Mhm.
and our professions?
I think it comes back to, right? It's that connection, it's the building relationships, right? It's that building partnerships, right? Because I think part of the struggle with HR is that HR is part of decision making that has to do with hiring, firing, promoting, policy changes, all of those things, which is a huge responsibility. And so that can lead to people, being a bit standoffish and that kind of a thing. Um, but if we can partner with folks and build the relationships, and how can we have a, mutually helpful
Win-win.
partnership in something, right?
Yeah.
And I myself have um I'm a big fan of, building those relationships, and sometimes it's in a way that, takes a little bit more effort. Um So, in my previous job years ago, I joined the softball, like the organizational softball team, and that was a lot of folks from like finance or, IT or whatever. And I tell you what, I always got what I needed from IT, right? Like, and because it was building those like
Yeah.
relationships, the thing. And so where I'm at now, there's a few of us, we play some pickleball, right? And and part of it is I'm also that leader where I will show up and I will ask my team to show up. If the organization is doing something, show up. If
Yeah.
there is the company softball tournament, if there is, that day the baseball game, if there whatever that is that the
Yeah.
organization is doing, show up if you can and talk to people and make the connections and be humans
Yeah.
together. And I've found that goes a long way.
Yes. Well, I say build the report before you need it, before you're together in a project that you're
Yes.
gonna have to collaborate. If you have the report beforehand, I think any
Yeah.
project will be much better.
Yeah.
The way how it works out, the communication, the trust, everything is it's
Yes.
kind of already baked in and it's genuine, right? Like build it
Mhm.
genuinely before you need
Exactly. Because that's the thing is they get to know you as a person,
exactly.
not like the HR person or the L&D person,
Yes.
right? I'm not here to make you take all of your training or, like I'm here as a person and I want to support and I want to, the other thing is listening, right? Like before, you do start that, like you said, like to build the rapport, like also let's listen. Let's just show up to the sites. Let's just show up and ask, like, what are your pain points? What's your frustrations? What are your barriers? let's see what we can do about it, right? Let's get to that win-win. Let's remember that we're all on the same team. We're all like the organization has a vision. We're all there, right? For that mission, for that purpose. Let's figure out how to show up together in partnership, because again, it's the connection. I know how many times have I said that, right? It's humans, and as humans, we crave connection.
Yes.
And there's a ton of research out there that if you do have those connections at work, you're gonna be a better, happier employee.
So
So
keep connecting, keep gluing, build partnerships, listen more, be there to support. Where can people find you, Carrie?
LinkedIn, definitely LinkedIn. So check me out and also follow Rock ATD.
Yep.
You go to our website, rockatd.org. We are very active on LinkedIn. Like I've got this great board. They do amazing things. They plan awesome programs. And part of that is our LinkedIn presence is like pretty
Yes,
good.
it
So
is. And we'll
check
link
it out.
everything. We'll put everything at the bottom of this
And
video for sure.
yeah. And just like anytime we're doing something, just show up if you're curious and come say hi. I'd be happy. I would be happy to meet um, and get to know folks. It'd
I
be
love
great.
it. Always up for connection, always up for collaboration and partnership. So,
Mhm.
Carrie, I look forward to continuing collaborating in our community in
Yeah.
different ways between the Association for Talent and Development and
Mhm.
Disrupt HR
Yep.
Rochester. And you never know. I don't know what other synergies might come up. So I'm
And
always
that's
open. I know you are. So you never know. But reach out
yeah.
to Carrie and the board and ATD. And we'll put the link for any upcoming events that
Mhm.
you might have this fall and spring. I know you do some really cool stuff in the fall. So we'll look out for that. Any
Yeah.
last words of wisdom for the
Oh, you know, be the glue. Connect with someone.
I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.